Welcome everybody to week 1 of Burnt Coverage. I'm your host Curtis.
And I'm Joel. And so what we do here, if you're new to watching the show, is we cover daily and weekly fantasy sites, fantasy games, if you will. We mostly cover the big boys, FanDuel and DraftKings, and we'll cover strong plays and strong values based on salary projections each week for each specific site.
Yeah, and the strong values, we're going to point out the guys that we think are good prices that are also going to perform well. However, in doing this, we're assuming that you are aiming for some higher end guys and you want to be able to afford them. So we're going to give you the lower end guys so you can afford the higher end guys. We will mention a few higher end guys that we really like as well, but we're really going to focus on the values for the daily and weekly leagues.
We'll give you our strategies along the way, and hopefully we'll get more right than we get wrong.
And we're already getting more wrong than we got right there. Hey. So let me start.
Okay.
Sure. I'm going to start this week with the quarterback position, the glamour boys, unless you're Geno Smith, and then you're just the injured boys. We're going to start off with a value that I really like this week, and that is Carson Palmer. Carson Palmer, vet in the league, playing at home against one of the worst pass defenses and defenses in general, the New Orleans Saints. And I expect this game to be a barn burner. There will be a lot of high scoring. The Saints were 25th against the pass last year, which ain't good. There's only 32 teams. And Carson Palmer was one of the better quarterbacks in the league last year before he went down with an injury. The Cardinals were obviously one of the top teams before that happened as well. Still stuck in the playoffs with some garbage, but that's for a different day. What I really like about Carson Palmer, though, are his targets. John Brown, for one. John Brown is a fantastic target. He's being likened to a T.Y. Hilton, and for half the price, just about. So that's a guy maybe in wide receivers. Joel will cover that later. But I really do like Carson Palmer's receiver set. John Brown, the great Larry Fitzgerald. Not late great yet, but he's getting there. He's still got a little tread on his tires, though. And they have Michael Floyd coming back from an injury. And I know that you heard about this, Joel, Michael Floyd's terrible injury. He had dislocated fingers and they actually came through his hands.
It looked absolutely terrible.
Yeah, so I'm assuming it's something like this. If you can get a, like no
That's
fingers.
That's the scientific picture that we were.
I'm gonna work on that later. That might have been a gang sign in Mongolia, but who knows. So I really like Carson for all these reasons. Also, the running game is kind of a mess, but with Andre Ellington out there, this is a guy that can take any sort of short pass and go all the way with it. So I'm looking at over 300 yards, easily 2 touchdowns. Carson Palmer, a really strong play, and the best thing is his price. His price in DraftKings is $6,500. It's $7,700 in FanDuel. He's going to be playing against the Saints cornerback core that's completely deteriorated. Their number 1 cornerback from last year, Keenan Lewis, he is out for the first month at least. And also their their 3rd round draft pick corner is out for the year on injured reserve. They only have Brandon Browner, who's more of a hit-him corner than a cover corner. He's actually moved around the league quite a bit now. So I really like Carson this week.
And also with Andre Ellington is very injury prone. So he's a very small back. He's very talented, but he hasn't been able to stay on the field very long. So if he does go down, that's going to add more pass attempts. And the one thing that Carson Palmer does have going for him is he is playing against Rob Ryan's defense. And what we do know about Rob Ryan is he does not know how to coach defense.
Yeah,
so.
gets paid to coach defense, but it's not the best. It's fun riding on the coattails of your
Hall of Fame father.
Hall of Fame, Hall of Fame father. I
Hall
guess
of Fame
a
in
couple
my
brothers
heart.
got that.
Hall of Fame in my heart.
Hall of Fame brother?
No, his father.
No, I know. I was just joking.
No, get out of here.
Next up for quarterbacks, a guy that I know Joel likes a lot, Joe Flacco.
He's from the East Coast. I like that.
Yeah. Jersey guy?
No, he went to University of Delaware.
Well, he went to the University of Delaware.
Yes, he is actually from the Philadelphia area. He's from Philadelphia suburbs. I forget the high school that he went to, but he went to high school with my cousin and he was a 3-sport star.
Oh, there you go.
There you go, insider info.
Yep. The other two sports were
field hockey and diving.
Thank you, field hockey and diving. So just don't look it up. Just trust us on
Yes.
that. Joe Flacco this week is a very good play for a couple of reasons. One of which, he's a vet. He's always consistent, so I don't feel you're going to have a big letdown from him. Even with this passing core, he does have Steve Smith, who I think in his last year will be a very motivated player. And then he has a guy, Kamar Aiken, who I think is very undervalued for his price, especially for a starting wide receiver.
You love Kamar Aiken.
I really do. I drafted him in a standard league with my last pick. I think that they drafted this guy, Bashard Perriman, as well, who is injured. So Kamar Aiken's got his shot to shine right now. Even with this not so great receiving core, he does have Mark Trestman as an offensive coordinator, and Mark Trestman loves to throw the ball. He especially loves to throw the ball to his running backs, and Justin Forsett is a very capable receiver out of the backfield. So I'm thinking that Justin Forsett might be able to catch 6-7 passes possibly, and stretch that into 50 yards, which is easily pads Flacco's stats. I also like about this game the fact that the Ravens defense is one of the worst, if not the worst, against the pass, and they're playing Peyton Manning in Denver. So Flacco is going to have to throw a lot. And with that big arm, there could be some plays where he gets some 60-yard bombs. Don't sleep on Flacco this week. The big thing about Flacco, though, that I do like is his price in DraftKings. It's $6,700, which is very cheap. FanDuel is a little more, $8,200. Maybe for that price, I don't like him. But if you're going to play in DraftKings and you want kind of a lower-end quarterback, Joe Flacco might be your guy.
But it should also be noted at this point, there's a variance between the salaries in FanDuel and DraftKings because there's a difference in your salary cap. DraftKings has the $50,000 salary cap and FanDuel has the $60,000 cap. So the players on DraftKings always tend to be a little higher. It's just a matter of what percentage of value you're looking for.
Yeah, and you know, that varies, and hopefully that's something we're going to bring to you a little bit later, percentages played. But right off the top of my head, you know, $6,700 in DraftKings versus a $50,000 margin is only about 12 or 13%. For a starting quarterback that could do 302, something similar to Carson Palmer, it might be a decent play this week. Another guy that I like, and I think, Joel, you might agree with me, is Sam Bradford.
I do agree with you on that point.
What a shocker. Sam Bradford is a quarterback in the NFL this year. He hasn't been very recently because he's been injured, but is that really necessary?
It is absolutely necessary. You're talking about Sam Bradford.
I almost feel like I can't speak on the Eagles because he's always going to pull out something.
No, I enjoy it. I enjoy it because every time you speak about the Eagles, you're usually talking bad about them. So I am enjoying this part of the show.
Don't enjoy it too much. I'll find a reason to talk bad about him. Don't worry. Sam Bradford has a very favorable matchup against the defenseless Atlanta Falcons. This is one of the worst defensive groups in the NFL. Last year, they were one of the worst against the pass and the run, which is one of the reasons I'm just slightly worried about Bradford because they could run the ball a lot given their great talent at running back. But as a team overall and the pace, I think it favors Bradford in the passing game. I like Jordan Matthews. I like Nelson Aguilar, their rookie wide receiver, might also be a nice sleeper play in fantasy. And all of their running backs, by the way, can catch the ball out of the backfield too. So there's a lot of weapons, a lot of ways to score. I know Zach Ertz is questionable at best.
Yeah, he did practice today being Wednesday, in preparation for Monday night's game. He's still going to be a game-time decision, so I'm not comfortable making that play, but any other offensive player on Philadelphia will hear no argument from me.
Yeah, and you know, as a sleeper, maybe Brent Selleck too would be somebody if Zach Ertz
It's a possibility, but it's a game-time thing, and if you're going to play in a league where you're locked in for Thursday night, I don't know if you want to take that risk.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, Bradford is still Ertz or not, still has a lot of weapons and that fast pace, and it should be a very high-scoring game overall. So Bradford with a price, especially in FanDuel, $7,500. And the guys that are in that range aren't guys that you want to play really. It's the Bortles, Carr, Mariota range. He's just a step above that. He's 6,900 in DraftKings. Flacco's a little cheaper in DraftKings. So really, that's just up to you what you think.
This is really the cheapest that you're going to see Sam Bradford all season. As long as he stays healthy, and I'm shocked that he is this cheap. I'm assuming he's only this cheap is because they made these prices a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Is when these prices locked in.
I mean, probably a month ago, maybe they thought Sanchez had a chance still.
Well, I just think that they weren't because Bradford still wasn't practicing fully. He was still recovering from the ACL. But yeah, you won't get this price for Bradford at any point in the season after this.
Yeah, and so those are my low-end guys. High-end guys, Matt Ryan on the other side of this game, of course. I also like Peyton on the other side of the Flacco game, just kind of. But if I'm going to choose a player in one of those games, I'm probably going to take the lower-end guy. I also wanted to ask you, Joel, about Tyrod Taylor. This is a guy that stole the, I guess, the last man standing in the quarterback battle. I don't know how many times can I do quotation battle that happened in Buffalo. Tyrod Taylor's the cheapest quarterback in both leagues.
He is, and he is better than E.J. Manuel. I will give him that. But I think it's the best move for the Buffalo Bills as an NFL team to name him starting quarterback, and I think it helps LeSean McCoy's stock, and I think it helps Sammy Watkins' stock in the long run. But short term, I'm not a buyer. I mean, we're talking about a sixth-round pick who's been in the league 4 years. This is his first year with Buffalo, but he's attempted 35 passes in the NFL. So he's got the legs, which he's made his career out of, which got him drafted. But I'm really not convinced as to him as a starting quarterback yet.
To me, I mean, he could cover at this, but to me, the top end for him is like 200 yards passing and a touch, and 50 yards rushing and a touch. But that would be
That's
ceiling.
the ceiling, yeah, exactly. But his floor could be so low.
Yeah.
Like it could be 100 yards passing and 30 yards rushing.
Yeah. I wouldn't blame a $2 flyer and you wanted to fill out a bunch of studs,
No.
but just you've been warned. Joel?
Let's move on to wide receivers. So, if you've heard me before, I've been pushing the fact that you should not spend on wide receivers this year in the daily and weekly leagues, just because I think there's so much depth and so much value in wide receivers that I don't think you need to spend for the high end. But I'm gonna contradict myself in week one. So get used to it. But I think this is the week where you can spend for the higher end, and that's going to be led off by Julio Jones. Julio Jones is the most expensive wide receiver in both leagues, in FanDuel and DraftKings. He's $9,000 plus in both leagues, and he is going against the Philadelphia Eagles defense. And while the secondary of Philadelphia is completely revamped and I think will be much better than it was a year ago, he's still Julio Jones. He is still the best wide receiver in the NFL. He's still going to get 15 targets a game. He's going to result in 8, 9, 10 catches. And, I mean, we've seen him have 200-yard games. As an Eagles fan, I'm not going to say he's going to do that this Monday night. But the possibility is always there for Julio to go off. And especially with Roddy White being hobbled and with Leonard Hankerson being their new third wide receiver, being a third wide receiver at best his entire career, I don't think he's going to steal any snaps from him. So Julio is definitely a strong play. Moving on to my next big spender, it would be A.J. Green. A.J. Green, Cincinnati Bengals, and they are playing the Oakland Raiders in Oakland this week. And the one thing I can say about Oakland is that their secondary is terrible. I don't think Andy Dalton, I am on record as saying I don't think Andy Dalton is a very good quarterback. I think he's a starting quarterback, and that's as good as I can compliment him. But A.J. Green is a phenomenal talent. A.J. Green is in a contract year as well, which usually tends to equal big targets, big receiving yards, because they want to get their money.
He's also coming off a not-so-great year last year where he was injured.
So he's got something to prove. The only thing I would worry about telling you to play A.J. Green is Khalil Mack. I think Khalil Mack is going to be in Andy Dalton's face all day long. I think Khalil Mack is a stud. So I worry about Andy Dalton being able to get A.J. Green the long ball, but all Andy Dalton has to do is do 5-yard slants with A.J. Green, and A.J. Green can take it to the house, and that has proved to be very successful in the past for the Bengals, and I don't see any reason why that would stop this week. Moving on, back to the Eagles, I'm going to go Jordan Matthews. Jordan Matthews is the second-year wide receiver. He's taking over we all know the departure of Jeremy Maclin, and Jordan Matthews is in line to get all of those snaps, all of those receptions that Maclin took when he went to Kansas City. And as my co-host pointed out, Atlanta has a terrible defense, so this is going to be a very high-scoring affair. I have no problem with anyone playing any offensive player on any team, but I just think that Jordan Matthews, for the value, Jordan Matthews is currently going for, I have it here.
Oh, I've got it here.
I have it.
I can find it first.
No, you can't.
$7,200 in DraftKings.
$7,200 in DraftKings.
But $68 in FanDuel, kids.
That's what I wanted. $6,800, and FanDuel is the half-point PPR. And I think Jordan Matthews is going to be another PPR stud. I think he'll average 12 targets a game, which, if he catches half of them, that's where you're going to make your money. On to the lower end, I'm very, very high on Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry, wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins, and they're playing the terrible Washington Redskins this week. Jarvis Landry and Ryan Tannehill last year proved that they have a developing chemistry, and Jarvis Landry is going to be the possession receiver in that offense. And with the loss of Mike Wallace, there's that many more targets for him to take. So I think Landry is a very strong play this week against the Redskins. One question I have for receivers is Green Bay. Everybody's talking about Devontae Adams. I know Devontae Adams is stepping in for the injured Jordy Nelson. Devontae Adams hasn't done it. I know he's really cheap and he's a great value. If you're playing in a head-to-head game, I think I would avoid him. But if you're playing in a league with hundreds or thousands of other people, I think you have to play him just because everyone else will, so you have to essentially play him to cancel him out. So what are your thoughts on that strategy?
Actually, exactly the opposite, Joel. I feel in a larger league where everybody's playing him, that means everybody's playing him. So if he's a bust and you're not playing him, you're in good shape.
But if he's a bust, so it's really difficult to call any receiver that Aaron Rodgers is throwing to a potential bust.
What do you think the halftime score of this game is going to be?
Well, I think Green Bay will be up by at least 3 touchdowns by halftime. So it's just a matter of how much Green Bay has to pump the brakes, or chooses to pump the brakes, and it turns into an Eddie Lacy game. But I don't know. Green Bay may want to shove it down Chicago's throat.
I feel kind of bad for you having to choose wide receivers this week because there's a lot of good high end, but there's also a lot of good low end. And I wrote down, just because I'm that guy, I wrote down a bunch of guys that could be possible, and Joel, all the ones that Joel chose are people that I'm playing in different leagues and different flyers. I like to play a lot of $2 flyers, make a ticket, hopefully one hits. But Landry actually tops my low end guys. But Hopkins, Eddie Royal, Stevie Johnson, Coleman for the Saints, John Brown we talked about earlier.
Coleman for the Saints, come on.
I'm just saying that these are guys that could play. Kendall Wright, Amari Cooper,
Allen Robinson,
Steve Smith, Kamar Aiken, Aguilar for the Eagles, Marcus Wheaton if you're playing in the Thursday league. And it's just there's so many wide receivers and it's week 1.
Which goes to my point of not spending for the wide receivers. But I think in week 1 you really want to try to eliminate the what ifs. You want to go with bankable commodities because the only information we're going on is last year and the preseason. And so no team is really breaking out their entire playbook in the preseason, so we don't know what teams are really going to do. So in week 1, I really think that you should spend for the wide receivers, but Curtis is right. There is so much wide receiver depth in the NFL, and it's a passing league, so there's a lot of value to be found.
I took one thing from that, and that's Curtis is right.
We'll fix that in post.
I'm the post guy, so we won't fix it in post. And
again.
One quick thing, not to dwell on wide receivers, but we've spoken before. We actually talk about football outside of the show too. About Allen Robinson and Allen Hurns. Both guys that could get targets and hopefully improve.
But it's funny, we disagree. We disagree that the Allens in Jacksonville are both good. We just like different Allens. I'm big on Robinson, and I know you are a big proponent of Allen Hurns.
And it's not that I think Allen Hurns is some great specimen. It's just for the price. He's cheaper than Allen Robinson. We don't have to pull up exactly that, but I know Allen Robinson or Allen Hurns is around the 4,000 mark in DraftKings. So it's just and just back to my point, a lot of cheap guys. But Jordan Matthews, AJ Green, Julio Jones especially, all fantastic plays. So do your homework and don't be afraid to step out on a ledge with somebody. It's at least week one on a lower end, I'd say.
Did you say step out on a ledge with somebody?
Yeah, it's like that. Wish you would step out on that. Remember that song? Ledge, my friend.
So anyway, do you want to move on to the next position?
I probably should.
Thank you.
Cut ties. Sorry. Next
Oasis.
position.
Oasis.
I love Oasis.
Oh,
it's Third Eye
God,
Blind.
it's terrible.
Come on, it's Third Eye Blind. Next up, running.
Whatever. Sorry.
For our transcript of if this was Third Eye Blind or Oasis, check out our fan page. We don't have one. Next up, running backs. Running backs this week. It's my schedule.
Oh,
Yeah,
I didn't know what it was.
I have some naked pictures on the back too, just in case I get bored with the show. Running back this week is a hot topic because you have to pick a running back in both these leagues. What I like to do is go for the guys I think are going to get the most carries but are also inexpensive. Granted, the Eddie Lacy's, I think a very good player. Adrian Peterson, a little iffy, just first game back. He is Adrian Peterson though, so I can't blame you for playing him if he wants to be your high-end guy. But if I'm going to look at some low-end running backs and pay my money in the wide receiver market, if I do want the Julios of the world, these are the guys I'm going to be looking at. And the first guy I'm going to look at is Doug Martin. Yes, I am a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, full disclosure. And that I'm still a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan just shows you the amount of suffering I like to put into my life unduly.
Or just how little you know.
Well, you can be a fan of somebody and they can never win a Super Bowl. Back to the Bucs, who have won a Super Bowl.
NFL championships count.
It's not a Super Bowl, buddy.
Still counts.
It counts for Eagles fans. Doug Martin is a guy who was falling off a cliff. Everybody gave him up for dead, including FanDuel and DraftKings, but we'll get into that in a second. Charles Sims came in. Everybody was expecting that Sims was going to take over the job last year, and he didn't. And everybody was expecting him to take over the job this year in training camp, and he didn't. In fact, a recent report says he's actually closer to the Bobby Rainey area than the Doug Martin area, so more of a third-string back. Doug Martin's a guy that can easily get 20 carries a game. He's also decent in the passing game. And this is a team with a rookie quarterback, so they're probably going to lean on Doug Martin a little more, especially this week against Tennessee, who is very bad against the rush. Not very bad. They're 19th against the rush last year. But one of Jameis Winston's strengths is stretching the field. So if Jameis Winston does indeed, what?
I just think that you found a strength of Jameis Winston. I think that's funny, because I have not seen one yet.
You know that he was the first
Other
pick in
than
the draft.
stealing crab legs. If you need crab legs, Winston's your guy.
Have you even seen a college football game?
Yeah.
Yeah. You
College.
lost one.
Are we talking college? Or are we talking pro?
Yeah, the last time Bradford was good was when he was in
He
college.
was the number one pick.
Who was the number one pick?
Sam Bradford.
And who else was the number one pick?
Would you rather have
Yeah, you already
would you
ruined
rather have
yourself.
Bradford or Winston as your quarterback? Exactly. Thank you. Move on. Keep going. Keep going. Yeah.
Jameis
Whatever.
Winston. So, if Jameis Winston can stretch the field with his weapons, Vincent Jackson and Mike Evans, then it should open up a little more running room for Doug Martin. And in the week 1 first game of a rookie quarterback, you're going to kind of want to lean on your experienced running back a little more. So I do expect Martin to get plenty of touches this game. And his prices are phenomenal, and this is the big reason I really like him. DraftKings only $4,500. If you can get a guy who can, and I think this is kind of our threshold for our lowering guys, 80 and a touch, 80 yards and a touchdown. If you can get something like that out of Doug Martin, then you're golden with his price. FanDuel is $6,900, which is also a very good price. So I'm really high on Doug Martin this week.
It's funny because I think Doug Martin was amazing his rookie year, and last year, as you said, he did fall off. But I've been on the fence about him for week 1, but I think you just convinced me. I literally just put him in my lineup for FanDuel at $6,900.
Yeah, and like I said, technical difficulties.
Vamp.
He's technical, I'm difficulties.
Technically difficult.
Thank you. Yeah, it just for the price, it's just hard to ignore a guy that could get as many carries. I think 20 is certainly not out of the question. It could be up to 25, and with touches, a couple out of the backfield, who knows? Especially if he's having a strong game, and he has had them in the past. I'm not saying he's the old Doug Martin or anything, but just this game and the circumstances at home against a bad defense and a rookie quarterback, I really like it.
Muscle hamster.
There we go, Mr. Muscle Hamster. Next up, Carlos Hyde. Yes, Carlos Hyde. Full disclosure about Carlos Hyde, I've had him before in the past waiting for the Frank Gore breakdown, and it didn't happen. And then the times that he did get a chance, I really didn't see that much out of him. But for his prices, $5,300 in DraftKings, $7,300 in FanDuel, I'm willing to take a chance, and here's why. Minnesota defense against the rush is not very good. 25th against the run. They're actually good against the pass, so it would behoove them to run Carlos Hyde a little bit more and keep Adrian Peterson and the very efficient Teddy Bridgewater, who I'm sure is going to come up in a different show at some point, keep that Minnesota Vikings offense off the field. Also, they did get Reggie Bush in, but he's still more of a receiving back. I feel more of a third down back, at least early in the season, unless something happens to Hyde later, either he's ineffective or injury. I don't think Reggie Bush is going to cut that much into his production. And the 49ers have a new regime, starting with Mike Tomasula, who was their defensive coordinator, now their head coach. And as we know, defensive coordinators love to run the ball on offense to not make mistakes so they can keep their defense fresh and set up appropriately to play against the opposing team's offense. And they have a new offensive coordinator, one of my favorite names in the league. His name is Geep Chryst, or Geep Chryst, but I really hope it's Geep Chryst.
Jeepus Christ.
Jeepus Christ. So he's first year offensive coordinator, and he's formerly the quarterbacks coach for the Panthers, also the 49ers. So you can see a little bit of a running game there with those two quarterbacks. Also was big on tight ends, so maybe Vernon Davis has a play. We might touch on Vernon Davis a little later if we have to, but we don't have to. But I do back to Carlos Hyde. I really do like the position, and just as a fan, I like having a guy that I can root for in the primetime games. This is the Minnesota 49ers game. This is going to be the last game on Monday night of the doubleheader on Monday night. So it'll be fun to see if Carlos Hyde can perform. And if you picked everything else right and Carlos Hyde is the guy at the end, he could be the guy that leads you some good money.
I know, I'm really going to disagree with you on this because I think Minnesota's defense is very underrated, at least their run defense. I really, I don't believe in San Fran's offense at all, especially if Colin Kaepernick, if I'm an opposing defensive coordinator, I'm going to stack the box just to stop Carlos Hyde and make Colin Kaepernick beat me. But I think Minnesota is a team that's on the rise defensively and offensively. So no, I'm going to have to say pass on Carlos Hyde.
I like the price, $5,300. That's a big part of it in DraftKings, $7,300 in FanDuel. But also too, I know he's downplaying Kaepernick. I'm not a huge Kaepernick fan by any stretch, But the receivers are good. I mean, Bolden is proven is kind of like the Gore thing. Every year we're gonna give up on Bolden, but every year he still produces, and he's got a good rapport with Kaepernick. So they have to respect that. And now they have Torrey Smith, who's still a burner.
So old.
He can still stretch the field.
So old.
We'll see. And the emergence of Vernon Davis. Sorry, I couldn't.
Who is a
get
spring
through
chicken?
that. I couldn't get through that at all. And
Sell it.
my almost last running back is Jonathan Stewart. Jonathan Stewart for the Panthers, playing Jacksonville. Need I say more? But I will. He should get that 20 carry magical number mark. Maybe a few passes out of the backfield. There is the chance that he could be vultured to the goal line, though, by Cam or Tolbert. But still, for the amount of carries he's going to get and for his prices, DraftKings 5,800, FanDuel 7,100. I really feel that this is a positive play, and they really don't have anything else to go to. They have Greg Olsen, who's a phenomenal talent, but they have no other wide receivers. Funchess hasn't came along as much as the fantasy community would like him to. And the other guys are Philly Brown, Ted Ginn Jr. Yeah, it's not good. And I think Jonathan Stewart's backup is Fozzie Whitaker right now. And no, that's not a Muppet Baby. Fozzie Whitaker is an actual
great name. They have great names on the Carolina Panthers, but that's it.
Yeah. So if you're in a great name league, and you know Panthers are the way to go.
But the thing is, so I think that the Carolina Panthers were a passing offense before the hit to Benjamin. But now I think they're going to be forced to become a running team with Newton as the main threat and complemented by Jonathan Stewart. And Jonathan Stewart is one of the few three-down backs in the league. Like, the three-down back is a dying art form in the NFL. There's so many running backs by committee in the league now. If you can find one that is going to get 18 to 20 carries a game, especially at that price point, why not?
Yeah, I agree, and he was actually really good at the end of the last year, Jonathan Stewart.
He was on fire.
So as long as, and once again, a guy who, if he can stay healthy, can be very productive.
And D'Angelo Williams is out of the picture, so that just adds a couple more carries.
Yep. And just some quick hitters. Chris Ivory. Chris Ivory is a guy. He's a very powerful runner. Really fun to watch.
Chris Ivory is a guy.
Chris Ivory is a guy. He is. I don't know. I haven't seen any lot
Bird
of
coverage
footage,
for news flashes.
That was my Roto World update. Chris Ivory is a guy. So if you thought it was
right there,
Christina Ivory, no, it's Chris Ivory. Chris Ivory is a guy.
Michael.
Chris Ivory is an NFL football player that could have a good week this week against the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns are a terrible team in general, but especially against the run. They gave Alfred Blue, who I'll talk about in a second, his only good game last year. Chris Ivory, problematic though, he is in a bit of a committee with Bilal Powell and Zach Stacy, who are decent running backs in their own right. And I would, if I were the Jets coach, Todd Bowles, I would kind of want to mix in those other guys too. I don't know if Chris Ivory is going to get 20 carries. It was hard for him to get that last year, even though he was productive. But Chris Ivory for his price is great. 4,100 in DraftKings, 6,400 in FanDuel. If you want to roll the dice, I think it's a decent play.
I think I'm much higher on Chris Ivory than you are. I think this is going to be a ball control game, Cleveland and the Jets, and Cleveland is as you said, a terrible run defense. They gave up 142 yards a game last year. Not much has changed on that defensive front. And Changeli loves to run the ball, the offensive coordinator of New York. I don't think it's going to be much of a timeshare as people are thinking. And yes, Jets fans will say Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker. But the one thing you don't want is Ryan Fitzpatrick to throw the ball 30 times a game. So if you don't want Ryan Fitzpatrick to run the ball 30 times a game, you're going to have Chris Ivory run it 20 times a game.
Yeah, and Ryan Fitzpatrick just proves no matter how smart you are, it still doesn't make you a great quarterback.
He went to Harvard.
He did go to Harvard. Highest Wonderlic, Fitzpatrick. That does nothing for your fantasy, though. I have a question for you, though. I think one of the hot topics in the fantasy world, and probably maybe the most played player in fantasy to those in the know, would be Alfred Blue.
Alfred Blue, yes. Alfred Blue being the backup running back for the Houston Texans, and he will be keeping the seat warm for Arian Foster. Alfred Blue proved capable last year. He was kind of a hit or miss. He had 2 really good games, 2 really bad games last year, filling in for Arian Foster. But I think that their line is, the offensive line in Houston is above average at the very least. While I don't think Alfred Blue is a starting running back in the NFL, I think he's a very capable backup running back. I think he's probably one of the top 5 backup running backs in the league. So he is someone who can get you through the injuries to your studs. And while it is against a very strong Kansas City front, I'm willing to roll the dice. Like, I won't play him across the board in my leagues this week, but he'll definitely be in a few, especially at that price.
Yeah, I'm just wary because the only really good game he had last year, it was in a over 30 carry game. He had 150 yards against the Cleveland Browns, which are one of the worst rushing defenses in the league, as I just discussed with Ivory. So I'm kind of in the camp where if everybody else is playing him, I'd rather not and hope that he fails. But to be perfectly honest, in a couple of my flyers, I'm going to throw Blue in just in case, and so I can squeeze in some higher players.
Yeah, because if I can squeeze in Julio Jones and Andrew Luck, and that forces me to have Alfred Blue, I'm all right with that in a couple lineups.
Next up.
All right, let's go to tight ends. So for tight ends, this is going to kill me to say, but I'm going to start really cheap. I think the strongest play this week is the second cheapest tight end on both sites, and that's Larry Donnell of the New York Giants. Kills me to say. So Giants are playing the Cowboys this week. I think this is going to be a really high-scoring affair. It's going to be an NFC East battle. And one thing that we've both talked about a lot is the loss of Orlando Scandrick. Thank you. Orlando Scandrick, the nickel corner for Dallas. He was the defensive leader of that backfield last year, and I think if Bob McAdoo is smart, he's going to run Larry Donnell right down the seam and make whoever's filling in for Scandrick this week cover him. And no, it doesn't matter how big you are, you can't cover Larry Donnell if you're 5'10". So I think Larry Donnell is going to be in for a big week in a high-scoring affair. And that brings I want to take that back because I'm surprised you didn't mention Shane Vereen, actually.
I like Shane Vereen a lot, but the problem that we're getting into is like why I'm iffy about Ivory. It's just the running back by committee.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, if I wanted to say Shane Vereen, I could also argue Jennings. I mean, Dallas isn't a great defense, and maybe if Jennings busts a few, he could be good too, especially if you're going to be covering ODB. You know, and
that's exactly it. With the loss of Victor Cruz still not 100%. And Ruben Randall, I think we both agree, is not a very good football player in real life or in fantasy.
I mean, he can be decent, but it's not somebody I'm going to put money on.
No, not at all. So at that point, I think Larry Donnell has done it in the past. Like, he was a beast for a big stretch last year. And I have no reason to think that he doesn't pick up where he left off.
Yeah, and Dallas worst against the tight end.
There you go.
So that's definitely something to look at. But just quickly in your Vereen thing.
Go for it.
I love Vereen, and especially in a season league. But it's one of those kind of I want to see what happens.
See, I don't know, because now I think that Shane Vereen to me has been eerily silent in the preseason, and I think
almost too silent.
Exactly, I think that's for a reason. And I love Shane Vereen in the New England offense, and there's no if they're going to spend the money for Vereen and bring him to New York. I think he's the new toy, and I think he gets broken out. So I think personally that you jump now before anyone else does, and you get the heads up, and you play Vereen this week when no one else will, or very few people will be.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to you opening your presents before Christmas. The only thing about Vereen that I'll say negatively is that the Giants game it has been with the running backs in the passing game, but it's never been a huge part of their passing game. They did have Ahmad Bradshaw, who was a unique talent when he was healthy. So I could see them doing that a little more, but they've always been favored of the ground and pound, the Brandon Jacobs sort of thing.
Agreed, but I just don't know. I'm pretty sure that with Cruz not playing, ODB is going to get double teamed. And so Eli's going to have to look somewhere else. And checkdowns to Shane Vereen have proven to be very successful in the past. In the past, he's a back who can catch the ball and take it to the house.
The last thing Jerry Jones wants is for us to see over and over a great ODB catch in the Cowboys Stadium.
That would make me so happy, though. All right, my next tight end. I'm going to go with a really obvious play. Everybody's been talking about him for a long time now. It's Greg Olsen, Carolina Panthers. He's a very expensive tight end, relatively speaking. He's going for $5,300 in DraftKings, $5,900 in FanDuel. But like we've talked about before, he is essentially the only option in the passing game in Carolina. Cam Newton's going to have to look somewhere. Greg Olsen is essentially, he's playing like a Jimmy Graham role. He's a number one wide receiver, especially with the loss of Benjamin. Jonathan Stewart is a nice running back, but Greg Olsen is a proven commodity who did it last year with Kelvin Benjamin in the lineup. And you take Benjamin out of the lineup, and that's that many more targets for Greg Olsen this week.
Yeah, and this is going against the grain and other things that I've said. Everybody's playing him. I don't want to play him. I want to play Greg Olsen. This is a guy that was a 1,000-yard receiver last year. This isn't an Alfred Blue who really hasn't proven himself. This isn't a guy that just has an opportunity, and we hope he takes advantage of the opportunity. Greg Olsen is a guy that has always performed. Very solid. Always in the game because he's a great blocker, too. And if he had 1,000 last year, I mean, 1,200 certainly isn't out. Even a double touchdown year wouldn't be out of the question for Greg Olsen.
I actually have Greg Olsen as my second-ranked tight end for the season.
Yeah,
behind Gronk.
And it wouldn't shock me if somebody thought even higher of him if they thought over Gronk just because of Gronk's injuries. Greg Olsen doesn't really get injured. If Greg Olsen plays 16 games, I mean, what's the best you expect out of Gronk? 12 in a year? I mean, that's probably about the average. Yeah,
but I wouldn't put him above Gronk, but above the Kelseys and the Grahams. I'm definitely putting Olsen above those guys this year. Moving on, going on to Delanie Walker, Tennessee Titans. We all know my love of Marcus Mariota. And the best friend of a rookie quarterback, other than the local nightclub owner, is going to be your tight end. It's going to be check down city. The speed of the NFL is completely different, going from college to the pros, and it's really, the preseason doesn't give us an accurate glimpse. And I think Mariota's proven himself. He's gotten progressively better as the preseason has gone on. But I think Delanie Walker is going to be a huge piece of this offense this year, especially with their running game. Sankey is not good. I know they just got Terrence West, and I'm not too high on him either. As my co-host said, if Cleveland got rid of you, you can't be that good. I will give you the credit for that one.
Thank you.
But Delanie Walker, he's going for $3,400 in DraftKings, which is a steal, and $54 for FanDuel. It's a little higher, but that's kind of mid-tier for the FanDuel tight end, so it's not that much more than any other tight end you're going to be looking at. One more, might as well mention him. I am not really that high on him, but I think he's going to be a strong play this week. It's going to be Martellus Bennett. The Chicago Bears, I think, are a god-awful football team, but Alshon Jeffrey is still hobbled. Who's the other one?
Eddie Royal.
Eddie Royal is completely overrated. Kevin White is out for the season, so it's going to be the Bennett show. And they're going to be down early to Green Bay, so they're going to be forced to throw it. And Martellus Bennett is a really good tight end. He's just stuck on a really bad team with a really bad quarterback. But for $4,300, if you want to spend a little more on a tight end, I think Bennett's the way to go this week.
Yeah, I like Bennett, but I want to go back to rookie quarterbacks and throwing it to the tight end. So that must mean you like Austin Severian-Jenkins for the Bucs.
No, I do not like him at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Rookie quarterback.
Rookie quarterback. All right. So I was going to let it go this time. How many touchdowns has Jameis Winston thrown this season?
The season
0.
hasn't started. No one's thrown any touchdowns.
In the
this
preseason,
season.
how many touchdowns has Jameis Winston thrown as a professional quarterback?
Are we counting
0.
wins,
0.
losses?
0. 0. I was going to let it go. I wasn't going to say anything about Jameis Winston.
I'll throw a bet that Jameis Winston throws at least 1 touchdown this year. You gonna take that? All right, cool. Just making sure.
No, I know Jenkins is a very highly touted tight end in that offense, but I just don't have any confidence in that offense whatsoever outside of Doug. And I'm not even that high on Doug Martin, but I think Doug Martin is going to be the focal point. So if I am going to buy anybody in that offense, it will be Doug Martin. But other than that, it's the Black Plague to me.
One quick note on my boy Austin Seferian-Jenkins is that Jameis Winston threw to his tight end more than anybody else in college football last year. So that could be a trend that continues. Just putting that out there if you're looking for a low-end tight end.
And it is true that Florida State last year was better than Tampa Bay is this year.
And I would have liked to have seen a Florida State-Tampa game from last year.
You're the only one who would like to see that.
He likes a strong word.
Do you want me to do defenses? You want to do? Let me do defenses.
If you like.
All right, let's do defense. I'll do defenses really quick. So I think the big defense this week is going to be the Colts. I know that Curtis has mentioned Tyrod Taylor. That's who they're playing. The Colts are dirt cheap this week. They're going 2,900. But like I've said before, Taylor, his only weapon right now is his legs. I'm envisioning Sammy Watkins going to be covered by Vontae Davis, who I think is the best cornerback in the league. Sorry, Darrell. But so I don't think that they're going to do anything offensively. Outside, I know the Colts' pass defense is questionable, but I have no confidence in the rookie or he's not a rookie, but in the first-year starter quarterback, and so I'm going to spend $2,900 for the Colts this week. You got anything on the Colts?
Yeah, I think Colts are a decent play this week, for sure. I'm not so low on Tyrod Taylor, but I'm not so high on him either, so I can't really say either way.
Okay.
I will say that Shady is still a great running back, even though he's left certain people's teams.
He used to be a great running back.
Yeah, and any dude that wants to just have pictures of a bunch of bikini-wearing women in Vegas and have a ladies-only party, you gotta like this guy, right? Come on. Hey, he's not named Shady for nothing.
You could be talking Justin Bieber right now. All right, so anyway, we'll move on to my next defense. I'm going to go Miami Dolphins against the Washington Redskins. We all know the starting quarterback for the Washington Redskins is Kirk Cousins. And the one thing that Kirk Cousins does well is throw interceptions. So I envision I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game, but Kirk Cousins, the Washington Redskins are going to be forced to throw. And when he's forced to throw, he turns the ball over. I think Ndamukong Suh is going to be in his face all game. Looking at 2 or 3 picks. Maybe one gets taken back for pick 6. We'll see. But for $3,000, I think it's a great bargain defensive-wise. Next, I'm going real dirt cheap. I'm going Oakland Raiders. The Oakland Raiders are playing the Cincinnati Bengals. I know I've already talked up A.J. Green to you guys. And I know the Oakland defense has absolutely no secondary whatsoever, but they are better. Andy Dalton is an NFL quarterback. I've said it before and I'll say it again. That is all he has going for him. I have absolutely no confidence in him. A.J. Green is a top 3 wide receiver in the league, and he will get his touches and his catches. But I think Khalil Mack is also going to be in the face of Andy Dalton all day. And that's going to result in a lot of picks. It's going to force some throws, and I definitely think there's going to be a pick 6 in this game. So that's why I'm going to be all over Oakland State for $2,300.
Yeah, and I like this pick. I think Oakland is the cheapest defense in both, possibly.
Yeah.
And this is it's an underrated team. I don't think it's a great team by any stretch.
Are you talking Oakland?
Oakland.
I think it's an up-and-coming team. I don't think it's underrated.
Yeah, maybe not this year, maybe not the next year, but soon.
they're just not an old team anymore. They're not the Oakland Raiders of old where they would sign the veteran retreads. I think they have a plan now.
Yeah, just overall, the whole talent has gotten better. Khalil Mack, of course, they mentioned, but the offense, and a good offense actually helps the defense. It keeps them better rested. The weapons, Jeremy Hill is a fantastic player. AJ Green's great. Outside of that, you have a few question marks. So if you're gonna go cheap, if you need to squeeze in a cheap defense, I think that's the way to go.
Yeah.
Defenses don't usually score a ton of points anyway, and it'll save you $1,000 over Seattle. I know people high on Seattle, and that's fine. They are a very solid defense, but there's no guarantees that they're going to score a touchdown, defensive touchdown against the Rams.
And are they a solid defense without Cam Chancellor right now?
I think they're still solid. I mean, this is from Cam Chancellor. I think I just saw today actually that they said Cam Chancellor is the boom in the Legion of Boom.
Yeah.
He's your hard-hitting safety.
I think he said that though, didn't he?
Oh well, I mean, somebody said it. I said it too. So there's two people. And not to liken him to a former Buck, but kind of like the John Lynch, just the hard-hitting guy, kind of the enforcer in the back. So it's a loss for sure. But it's not that the whole defense has fallen off now. They still have Bobby Wagner. They still have Richard Sherman.
I think the defense falls off completely this year. I'm willing to go on record to say that Seattle Seahawks will not make the playoffs this year.
You heard it here first.
Yep, write it down.
And we'll see if that continues to be heard. But I somehow doubt it.
I'm telling you. All right, we'll see. Whatever. We'll talk about that off camera.
Yeah, and a quick hit here, my Bucks versus the Titans. Either of those teams at their cheap price could be worth it. The Bucks O-line is not good, so Tennessee could sneak through there. You have two rookie quarterbacks. The Bucks actually have some All-Pros on defense, Levante David and Gerald McCoy.
But saying the Bucks line is not good is an understatement. They are atrocious. They have been awful in the preseason. I admittedly don't watch a lot of Bucks games as much as you do, at least. But in the preseason games that I've seen, there's always somebody in that backfield.
Yeah, and I want to speak the truth to our fans out there. Hi, Mom. Yeah, the Bucks line is just not very good. They're okay with the run, but terrible with the pass. Rookie quarterback, it could be trouble. The saving grace is they're at home. They did play well against our favorite team, the Cincinnati Bengals, but that's about it. But
it's also a game that I'm very excited to watch with the two rookie quarterbacks. I don't think it'll be a pretty game, but I think it'll be an entertaining game.
Yeah, and so either of those defenses could be good.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I guess that just leaves it to me. Are you finished with it?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, kickers. We've saved the whole show for this the climax, which is our kickers, and I really got nothing here. It's a reach to pick a kicker. I'm not in the camp that says that you should pick a kicker in a defensive game because they're going to have to kick a lot of field goals. The old Justin Tucker or Adam Vinatieri, has to kick 5 field goals to win the game. You just don't know when that's going to happen. So I prefer to pick a kicker who I think is going to be in a high-scoring game, who's a decent player. And that week's going to be Josh Brown for the Giants. I think the Giants-Cowboys game is going to be one of the higher-scoring games of the week. Josh Brown had his best season last year. He is a veteran kicker. But as we've seen, older for kickers doesn't usually mean worse. Vinatieri's in a class of his own. But Josh Brown's been very solid. I see the Giants moving the ball against a very suspect Dallas defense. And so for the cheapest kicker out there, $4,500, I would say you could do worse than Josh Brown.
So I'm going to completely contradict myself again. And I actually am high on a kicker this week, as much as I am a proponent of throwing a dart at a dartboard to find a kicker. The kicker for the San Diego Chargers,
Lambo,
thank you, Josh Lambo, just beat out Nick Novak. And in case you haven't seen any of Lambeau's highlight reel, go check it out. He's an undrafted rookie out of Texas A&M. He was also a professional soccer player. He played in the MLS. He's got a leg and a half. And in a fairly high-powered San Diego offense, I think that 50-yard field goals are definitely in this guy's range. I've seen him kick a 65-yarder. So this is the last time that I will plug a kicker, but Lambeau.
You're doing a lot of last in your first here.
What was that?
You're doing a lot of last in the first show.
Well, I like to get them all out.
That's good. And I will say on Lambeau too that Nick Novak wasn't a bad kicker. I mean,
he was a good kicker. I mean, he was very
solid.
Reliable.
So there must be a reason they went with this Lambeau kid.
Yeah, and the one thing San Diego will do is put up points.
I also like Catanzaro, however you say his name.
Yeah,
for the
you were
Cardinals.
big on him last year, I know.
Yeah, he was my standard league kicker last year. He's a rookie. He was actually perfect until Palmer went down. And against New Orleans, he is a little more than Josh Brown. I still like to pay my minimum for my kicker every week and hope for the best. But that's just me. And I guess that's it.
I got nothing.
Yeah, and thanks for joining us.
Like us on Facebook, Burnt Coverage.
Oh, yeah, please like us.
Send us questions, thoughts, questions, feedback.
Yeah, if you want to be a talking head, we'd love to put you on the show.
Whether it's about football or not, we'll probably talk about you on air. So if you want that.
Preferably football.
And it doesn't really matter. I'll talk about you if it's not about football.
That's true. We're always taking donations as well. Booze, if you got it.
Scotch
especially.
And I think we would be remiss not to give a shout out to our lady in the corner, Amanda, who is our stat queen and also technical director at this point.
There she is.
Also, we're in 3D now.
Also married to me, believe it or not. So thank you, sweetheart, for sticking your hand up there and helping us out tonight. Well, we're Burnt Coverage. We'll see you next week, and we hope we helped you win a ton of money. And we have a catchphrase.
Oh, we do.
we put your money where our mouth is.
It's still so bad.
We're gonna fix it.
You keep saying
come
that.
up with something then.
We'll
We'll see you next week.
Next Thursday.
Bye.